Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Needlebug. My name is Karen, and this is session number 2 of our Hardanger series. And today we're going to be talking about buttonhole stitch. So, welcome, everybody. So glad that you're here. I see Heather and Colleen and Michelle and Martina and Eclectic SB. I forget what your name is. I'm so sorry about that. And Gil, I got your message that you've been practicing your butt off and you're ready for a buttonhole stitch. So, welcome everybody. I am so very, very glad you're joining us today. So, how did everybody do last week with your homework? Everybody make out okay? Anybody have any questions about that I can answer for you? I did see a few pictures from people who have got all the way around their piece. So I have mine in a hoop again today just because that's easier for me to demonstrate. So well, hi Tracy. Good morning. I'm so glad all of you are here, and this is such a wonderful thing that so many people are interested in learning this technique or perfecting what you already know. Uh, it's a fun thing to do, and this is a relaxing kind of stitching where it gets to be very rhythmic and you don't have to think a lot about it. So, yay, Michelle, you got the homework done. Good for you. Good for you. Proud of all of you that have at least you made an attempt. And wow, what can I say? What can I say? It's just so wonderful. So with that, let's switch our cameras here. Let me pull this puppy down and get my drink out of the way because I'll need that later after talking too much. And let's switch things up a little bit here and we will get started with a buttonhole stitch. Here we go. That's not the one I want. Here we go. This is what we want. So, okay, now I checked this earlier and it was quite fine. There we go. So what we're going to do today is, let's look at this picture here, is this stitch around the edge. Okay, so that's on the agenda for today. And if we have some time, even though, well, I think our pattern does call for it. I kind of don't have that right in front of me this morning, but we can do some eyelet stitches. Pardon me. We can do some eyelet stitches in these openings. And if we get to that today, I'm going to show you a way, because how many of you have done eyelet stitches and that hole just doesn't seem even all the way around? It feels a little lopsided. I'm going to show you how to avoid that. So let's get started with the buttonhole and we'll see if we have enough time to get to eyelet stitches. So we again know that we have a space here where the eyelet stitch will go. So that's going to be 4 threads. And then we need 4 threads for our buttonhole stitch or blanket stitch. Terms are interchangeable. So there is a difference. They are used for different things, but for our case today, we're going to think about that as basically the same thing, just called 2 different things. So what I'm going to do is the same thing as before, have an away thread. And I'm going to try very, very hard, guys, to stay in the frame because, as I said, this gets a little difficult when I'm holding it. However, to do it on a Q-snap, I can't manipulate my thread or my fabric the way I like to stitch. So, peeking around the camera here and keeping it for you guys, what we're going to do is count up from this first satin stitch. So satin stitch number 1, we're going to count up from that 8 threads. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be where our eyelet stitch goes. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you're going to come up through the fabric above the 8th thread. And like I said, you're going to start like you did before, leave a tail. That again is going to get worked in later. Now, here is what's a little different. If you remember, which I'm sure you all do, when we did the satin stitches, we went down right below we came up, where we came up, and then we came up at an angle. A buttonhole stitch does not do this. So this, what's going to happen is this where you came up is going to, this stitch will get finished off when we come around the whole thing and get back to this point. Okay? So, because it's easier for me to stitch this way, I'm going to turn my fabric. Okay? So, my working thread, I'm going to hold up out of the way with my thumb. Okay? What I'm going to do is go over by 1 thread, count down 4 stitches. Would you believe I'm watching this on the screen? And I'm going to come up a side of. So instead of this stitch going on an angle like it did when we did our satin stitches down here, this is going to be a straight stitch. So see here you came, whoops, sorry. All right, close them puppies up. Here is where we came up. We counted down 4, we went over 1 thread, counted down 4, brought our needle up right next to where we came up before. This is the most important part, and this is why I held my thread out of the way. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this thread underneath my needle so that my needle comes up on top of the working thread. Okay, again, as before, folks, stop me anytime that you have questions. Okay, so now I'm going to pull that through. And try not to pull it too tight. And again, I use my thumb to kind of make things lay nice. So now you have something that looks like this. Okay, next stitch. And you can, what's nice about when you do these is you can move them out of your way. So now again, I'm going to hold my working thread out of the way. I'm going to go 1 hole over, go under the 4 and come up, put this working thread under, when it pops out of your way, underneath the needle and pull it through. Now, for this first, there we go. For this first block, I am only going to do 4 stitches because, again, I'm sorry I keep bumping around here. I'm only going to do 4 stitches because this, where we came up, is stitch number 1 that will be completed at the end when we're all the way around. Okay, so that's stitch number 1, number 2, number 3, and we're going to do that again for number 4. Pardon my shaky hands this morning. Hi, Joy. How are you this morning? Okay. Oh, I trimmed this fabric so I wouldn't have so much fabric to deal with. I think I made myself a monster here. Okay. So there's number 4. And one more. Now, here's the other trick. See how my holes are kind of getting blocked? Like it's hard to see. Flip this up out of your way. Now you can see where your holes are. And I want to go down. This 5th stitch should be even with stitch number 5 on your cluster block. And we see here we can use our needle. Good morning, Leanne. We can use our needle and see that, oh wow, it is. Yay! So before we pull that through, we're going to put our thread underneath the needle, which in turn pulls that stitch back into place. And we're going to adjust just a little bit here. There, that makes it a little easier for me. Okay, and we're just going to pull that stitch back into place. Okay, so now we have basically our first 5 stitches done, because number 1 will get done at the end. We have 4 more. Now we are even with this. So then the question becomes, what's next? Where do we go next? We don't want to keep going across because that's not going to give us what we need. We need to go around a corner. Now, my own personal preference is to do rounded corners as opposed to square corners. So what I'm going to teach you is a rounded corner. I will also, as I'm doing that, tell you how to square it off if you prefer a square. When you do the corner, and I call this particular corner, because it's away from the block, an outside corner. Okay? This corner is going to share the hole, the base hole of the 5th buttonhole stitch. So in order to see this best, it's easiest to move this up out of the way so that you can see. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the hole. And up here, I see that this is the hole that where my last stitch was in. I'm going to count over 1 thread, 2 threads. You with me? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put that back down. I'm going to put my thread underneath the needle, and I'm going to pull it through. And pardon my thumb because I use my thumb a lot. So that is the first stitch in the corner. Now, it's best, again, move that puppy out of the way so you can see. Okay, let me get up here good and close. Again, I'm going to share the hole. Now, we see that that stitch we just did came up here. Now we are going to go directly diagonal. So it would be down one thread, over one thread to do the next stitch. Again, thread underneath the needle. That pulls that stitch back into place and pull this through. These corners are the hardest part. Okay, so there we have stitch number 2. Your corner is made up of 3 stitches. If you wanted a square corner, I'm going to move this out of the way. Instead of going down one and over one, it's a little hard to see that, you would have counted out straight 2 more and done the satin stitch. But again, my own personal preference is the rounded corners. I just think it makes it look prettier. Hold on a second here. Okay. Now, we need one more stitch in the corner. So, down in the same hole, again, down one thread, over one thread. So you see it makes a diagonal line. Can you see that? Can you see that? Makes a diagonal line. I'll show you a little trick after we get around this corner. Okay, so same thing. Pull it through. Don't keep getting caught on your fabric like I am. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? Okay, now we are going to start the 5 stitches that go in this direction. Okay, so we had 5 here, 3 in the corner. We're going to do 5 buttonhole stitches this way. I am again going to turn just because for ease of stitching. I'm going to move that up out of the way so that I can see. I'm going to share this hole one last time, and I'm going to count down 2 threads. Okay. I'm going to bring this back up, put it underneath my needle, and pull it through. So that now completes the corner and is the first stitch of our 5. If this doesn't look right and you go, oh, I did something wrong and I don't know what it is that I did wrong, here is the best advice I can give you. For this type of embroidery, when you make a mistake or you think you made a mistake, the easiest thing and the best thing to do is this. Flip it to the back. Okay? So here I can see my stitches across, and here I can see my corner. 1, 2, and it looks like, oh no, it's okay. 1, 2, 3. There's the next one. So you see, it's a little hard to see with this variegated thread. It makes it look a little funny. But I can see that this goes on a diagonal 3 stitches. So you can always see on your back if you made a mistake. And it's just like, I forget who asked me, when they look at the back of the cluster blocks, you're going to see one set only has 4 straight stitches. The other set has 5, and it alternates. That is perfectly the way it should be. Okay. So if you would look at the back and you would see, oh, this is 1, 2, actually this is 6 and 4, but if you see these counts are off, you know, again, that's where you made your mistake. If you see this is not the way it should be, that's where you made your mistake. So now we'll flip back to the good side and we'll go down, and you can double check yourself. Yes, I'm still lining up with this top stitch. So now I'm going to move that out of the, it's just easy to move this out of the way. And I'm going to use this hole, come up in this hole, and as you see, it's lining up with the top of this block. Okay, that lines up. So now, again, thread underneath and pull it through. Again, I use my thumb a lot, and I feel like I'm always manipulating the directions, so bear with me. Okay, again, up out of the way. Here and here. So this is number 3. Number 4. And the more you do this, the easier it gets and the more rhythmic that it gets. And number 5. Okay. Okay. So now we have 5. Okay. So now what do we do? I got my there, got my top. I came around my corner. I came down to here. I got my 5. So now I need to go this direction. This is what I call an inside corner. This corner is a piece of cake. Piece of cake. So turn. Okay. Up out of the way so we can see. Okay. You see there's 4 threads there, right? So what we're going to do is come down here, come up in this same hole and share that hole. So we're sharing this buttonhole stitch and this share the same hole. We're gonna tighten that up and do the same thing. Pull it through, and that is stitch number 1 in that corner. Okay, so now we're going to do just as before. 5 stitches. That's 1, okay, I got to come down here a little bit more so it's a little more comfortable for me. There we go. Now maybe I can keep it from jostling around so much. So again, just move these puppies out of your way when you need to. You can hold them over with your thumb. And always remember, your needle goes always on top of your thread. Because what you want is this little, it's going to make these little bumps up here at the top of the stitch. And that's what holds things together, because from here, you're going to be cutting all of this away. Okay, so these stitches are what holds your piece together. Okay, so now I have 3. I'm going to do number 4. And number 5. It's always a little harder to do in front of a camera. So now, if you notice, we are back here at the same point we were up here. Okay? So, we're at an outside corner. So what we are going to do here is the same thing that we did here. So, move that last stitch up out of the way. Again, we're going to share the hole. We're going to count. Here's where that last stitch went in. And we're going to count over 1, 1 and 2. Okay. Bring our thread again underneath, which pulls that previous stitch down tight again, and pull it through. Okay, so there's the first of 3 in our corner. Move that out of the way and share the same hole. Down 1 thread, over 1 thread. Oh, don't put it under your needle the wrong way. Bring this back so that you can pull it tight. And pull it through. So that's 2. Third one, again, down 1 thread, over 1 thread. Pull this back tight under the needle. Number 3. In the same hole, one more time. Count down 2 threads. There. This is now the first stitch of your next set of 5 under the needle. Pulls that back and pull it through. Okay, that was stitch number 1 of the first set of 5. I would say, Joy, that your tension is just so that it lays nicely on the top of your fabric. Now, I am going to say that at times, especially when you're doing corners, sometimes you tend to pull a little tighter than, but you don't want these stitches to be pulled too far. I mean, they're gonna have a little bit of a gap, but you don't want big gaps here. So I'm gonna do one to show you what I mean, and then I'll take it out. So if this is my next stitch. If I'm pulling it like this, see how it made that big gap and it doesn't lay even with the rest? That you don't want to do. So you don't want to over pull on these. Now I'm going to loosen that up again. You just want them, you want it so that okay. You want it so that they just play nice together. Okay, I might have. And sometimes I'll even use my needle to do the wiggle wiggle to make them lay better together. Okay. So you just want a nice even tension where it just lays nicely on top of the fabric, doesn't overstretch the hole. And now here I am doing the fifth one. So the fifth one shares the top of the cluster block, shares that stitch, and comes up 4 threads away. So we're back to another inside corner. Okay. And you just keep repeating that until you get all the way around. Does this make sense for everybody? Questions, questions. Oh my gosh, every time I say that, it okay, you get a funny little, well, not a whole story, but just a funny little anecdote. When I ask, does anybody have any questions? It always brings up in my mind when I was in nursing school, I had an anatomy and physiology instructor when we were in our first 9 months of training, which was all class. You didn't work on the floors yet. And we had an anatomy instructor who would give her lecture. And at the end of the lecture, she would go, questions, questions, any questions? So every time I ask if anybody has any questions, it just brings that up. So really, this is not, I mean, this is just another very repetitive motion, a very repetitive stitch until you get all the way around. Now, what I will do is I'm not going to stitch all the way around. That's going to be your homework. Don't you just love when I give you homework? Probably not so much, but that's going to be the home. Good, Fran. I'm glad it does make perfect sense while you watch me. That's why these go up on, or they're actually being live streamed to YouTube as we are doing this. So they will stay on YouTube so that you can go back and refresh your memory. Because I know how it is. While you watch, it makes perfect sense. It is so easy. Oh, yeah, that's so easy. I can do that. But as soon as you're doing it on your own, you go, oh, darn, how do I do that? So these videos are up on, will stay up on YouTube. Now, what I'm going to do for demonstration purposes, so that you know what to do when you get to the other end or back to the beginning. You love this kind of homework. You guys are so cool. You guys are the greatest. Well, hello there, Linda. How are you this morning? What I'm going to show you is I'm going to um oh, you forgot I'm an hour ahead of you. Oh, I'm sorry. Instant replay. I'm going to just make believe that I'm all the way around. And I'm just going to come up this side. So, and I can rip this out later. Well, yes, Martina, it is called home fun instead of homework. But I'm going to come up this side. Just so I can show you how to join. So let me get up there. I'm going to probably be out of the frame until I get up there, but you guys that came late, I can show you how to. Yeah, my dog ate my homework. Oh, yeah. The likely excuse, Linda. The likely excuse. Dog ate my homework. I wonder what the kids tell their teachers now. Well, no, there's quite a few schools going back to virtual learning. Um, so they have to, I know my grandkids um, use an app for their homework called Seesaw, which is what their school district uses. So they don't actually hand in a physical paper, they have to put it online. So I wonder what they say instead of my dog ate my homework. Okay. Okay, let me get around the corner here. That reminds me, Linda said she printed out. Those of you who, oh my goodness, I can't see. Hold on. Okay. Those of you who who downloaded the things from Dropbox a while ago, if you go back into Dropbox, I added some other pages that will help with your with stitching, the different stitches. I downloaded them from the Nordic Needle website and put them in the Dropbox. So if you want to, you should, if you don't have the link anymore, let me know and I'll send it to you again. Okay. So now once you did the 3 stitches in the corner and you're back here at the beginning, what you're going to do is let me get a hold of it here. This thread that was part of your away thread, okay? You just want to loosen that up a bit and then bring your working thread around so that you can go through. You want to pull up a loop so that you can go through that loop, tighten that up again, and then I'm going to go, actually I went through it the wrong way, pardon my, I haven't done this for a while, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any gentlemen here. Okay. All right, I want to watch which way the loop lays. So I'm going to go through, oh my goodness, that loop, and then I'm going to go back down in what was the first stitch, so that I'm actually finishing off that stitch and I have that bump at the top. Okay, so let me pull it out and do it again for you. So you're going to loosen up that thread. Okay, let me thread my needle again. Too many things here. Okay, so we're going to loosen up that thread. We're going to look at the lay of the land here. All right, so see how this side of it is the beginning of the stitch. So you're going to go through the loop this way. And you're going to go down in that shared corner hole because that's where stitch number 1 would have started. You're going to pull that through. And you're going to tighten this up and you're going to pull this through and then get that little thread tail out of there. And then that will complete your block. Okay. So really, once it's, once it's all cut out and what have you, you're probably not going to even be able to tell where you started to begin with. So then you would flip it over and end your thread the same way that you did on the cluster blocks. So even on this buttonhole stitch, you still start and end your threads the same way. So, did I lose anybody? That's probably the most difficult part of this whole going around. So, is there anyone that does not understand the buttonhole stitch? Because what I'm going to do now is get rid of all these extra threads because they're making me a little crazy. And I'm going to show you how to do. Yes, it is pretty. And you know what? This variegated thread just looks so wonderfully awesome. I love it. So now I want to show you a little trick for an eyelet stitch. You can put eyelets on this if you want to. However, it's not required, but you can if you want to. If you're going to put eyelets in, you want to use your thinner pearl cotton. And remember, this is how we thread the needle. Okay. Again, you would start your thread. I'm actually going to do it down here in this center one. And I'm going to pull my fabric a bit tighter on here just for kicks and giggles. Okay. So you would start your thread the same way. I'm just going to leave a tail. I'm going to come up in the center. Now, this in Hardanger, your eyelet goes in every thread or goes between every thread. So I would go here normally and come up. No, I'm sorry. I did that wrong. Sorry. I'm going to come up in a corner. What am I thinking? Oh, wait, I'm not. I'm going to come up in a corner because I want to pull that hole open. So we're going to come up in a corner. Normally, to do eyelets the way we've all done them in the past, you would come up in the corner and you would go in this next thread and pull it tight. What I'm going to show you to do is, instead of going across each thread individually, oh, wonder where my hubby's going. It's going somewhere. I'm going to skip a thread and come up in the middle. Okay. I'm going to pull it through and I'm going to pull it tight. Again, your thumb is your best tool ever. Okay. Next one, I'm going to skip a thread and come up in this corner. And again, oh gosh. And again, thumb is your best tool ever. So you see how already my hole there is looking even. I'm going to now come up, skipping a thread and coming up here. And each one of these I'm pulling tight because my object is to get this hole open as wide as I can. I'm now going to come up in the corner. I know, Sandra, turning those corners is a little bit tricky. Flip it to the other side. If ever in doubt, look at the back. Okay, I'm going to pull this one tight. Now I'm going to come up in the middle here and pull this one tight. So you see how so far our hole looks pretty even. I'm going to come up here, pull this one tight. I'm going to come up in the middle here. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep losing my getting out of the frame here. I'm so sorry. And pull this one tight. Now, I am back. This was my first corner. I want to do every stitch. So now, in order to keep everything even, because you see how nice and basically pretty even that hole is? Now I'm going to go back and pick up those skipped holes. Yeah, those loose threads are making me crazy. I should just cut them totally off. Okay. So why don't we do that? Just get rid of them puppies. There. Okay. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to pick up all those holes that I missed. So I did this one. I want to get this one. Any tricks? Work them in as you go. Don't leave them dangle. All right, I did the center one. I want to catch this one. Or you can cut them, like I just did. Then I did that corner one. So I want to catch this one. I did this middle one. So I want to catch this one. Am I all the way around yet? Let me see. I think I am. No, wait, I have this side to do yet. So I want to go in this one. So you see what I'm doing is going around, the first time around is every other thread. And when I come back, I'm filling in those threads that I didn't do the first time around. Okay. And then I'm going to go down in the center. And then I will work this thread in. So again, I want to work it in a manner that it pulls away from the hole. So see how nice and even your hole is? As opposed to when you just go completely around, sometimes the first side doesn't get quite as pulled as evenly as maybe the rest. Or the first side gets pulled really tight, but then the rest isn't. Linda, I use a size 24 needle, and my needle preference, and again, everybody's needle preference is different. I prefer a bowhin needle. That's what would you do it in a row if the color would change? Yeah. Well, no, Martina, no. I would do just as I did here, even if the color would change faster. It'll just give it a more mottled look. I would still do it this way. I think there are times where the neatness of the stitch is probably more important than how that color flows. Because on something like this, I mean, your color is going to constantly be changing. And I think it would just, actually, I think it would just add some more interest if that color would change quicker, that you'd get a variegated color in that eyelet stitch. I really do think it would give it more interest. When you're talking pearl cotton, though, I don't know that the colors change that quickly. Maybe some other hand-dyed threads or over-dyed threads, you might have more of that, but with the pearl cotton, I don't think they change that quickly. Well, I am so glad that you are finding these helpful. I really am. Um, that's what that's what it's all about. That's what we're meant to do. Um, I can I does anybody blah blah words? Does anybody have questions? Oh, did that one? Yeah, I think if you're gonna pardon me, if you're gonna use a variegated thread and the color changes faster, I just think that's gonna add to the beauty of the piece, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's a multicolored piece to begin with, so that color changing just makes it more interesting. So what I can tell you, let me flip cameras here again, guys. Let me switch you back, because that, unless you need me to show you more of the buttonhole stitch or the eyelet, I'm going to switch back here to my other camera. There we go. There we go. and get this up out of the way. We can pull it back down if we need it. Yeah, that's ah Joann's, I think, does not have, depending on what size you need. If you're using 8 and 12, I can tell you at least my Joann's does not have a lot of colors. They have black, they have white, they have more colors in size 5. So if you're doing it on, if you're doing this on 22 count Hardanger fabric, you might get a little bit more options in the size 5, but you probably won't get them in the size 8. They don't carry a lot of colors like at your Joann's and Michael's. And well, I can't speak for Michael's and Hobby Lobby because I honestly, to tell you the truth, I haven't been in those stores for a very long time, mainly because with all of this pandemic stuff that's going on, we're pretty much homebodies. And to be perfectly honest, I order 99% of my stuff online. So if you have, yeah, I don't know what Hobby Lobby or Michaels have. They may have more. I can tell you the last time I was to Joann's, which was ages ago, um, they didn't have a variety of colors. If you have a local needlework shop, you may well find more colors. Um, if you want a larger variety of colors, I would highly suggest ordering online at one of the, whether it be 123 Stitch, whether it be Needle in a Haystack, whether it would be any of your other online shops. Um, they would have more of a variety of sizes of pearl cotton and colors of pearl cotton. They would have more. Michelle, that I we did answer that in last week's video. However, however, pull my cheat sheet here. We can review it again. The way you calculate your fabric is if your pattern and most a lot of your later patterns will already have it calculated for you for a particular kind of a particular count of fabric. Patterns from, I'm going to say, back when I first started doing it, which was a long, long time ago, back in the mid 80s, did not have it calculated for you. So what I had to do was this. You count your blocks, including the buttonhole stitch, top to bottom. That will give you your length, and then side to side. So I can't remember if, yeah, this was the piece. This was the piece that we download, that I'm going to give you the number for the piece that that is that download from Nordic Needle. Okay. That cloister block count for the pattern plus the buttonhole edge is 83 blocks long. So it's 83 blocks this way. Where's the pattern? Okay. So from this point to the point down here, it's 83 blocks. And from the widest side to side is 38 wide. Okay, so you're going to count. You need to count the blocks. The magic formula is, we know the whole thing, the whole pattern is based on 5 satin stitches over 4 threads of fabric. Okay, so we know each of these blocks, the buttonhole stitch, the empty space, all the cluster blocks all the way down, each one covers 4 fabric threads. So if we have 83 blocks, each one is over 4 fabric threads, we multiply 83 times 4. And that is in the one handout that should be, you should have, was attached to the email that I sent you. Okay. So 83 blocks for the length means that you need 332 threads of fabric for just the design area. For just the tip of the cloister block, the tip of the buttonhole stitch to the tip of the buttonhole stitch. We know it's 38 blocks across. So you multiply that by 4, which brings you to 152 threads. Okay. So we know now that this design area is 332 threads by 152 threads. From there, you can go a math lesson. Believe me, I'm not going to tell you that I use a calculator. Now you handle this the same way you do in counted cross stitch. So instead of thinking it's 332 stitches in length, it's 332 threads in length. However, the process is now the same. What count fabric are you going to use? If you use the 22 count Hardanger fabric, you take 332, divide it by 22, and come up with 15 inches. You take the 152, divide it by 22, and come up with 7 inches. Now, it probably, when I did this on a calculator, came out to something point something something something. I always round it up. So if it comes out to 14.275, I round it up generously to 15. So anytime there's a number plus a point, blah, 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 I round it to the next highest number. So for this, your design area on 22 count is going to be 15 by 7. To that number, you need to add something. You need to add a margin. Now, you don't have to add a margin as generous as you do in cross stitch, because anything out past this buttonhole stitch is going to be cut away. It's wasted. So if you're going to stitch in a hoop like I put this, you want it enough to accommodate your hoop when you're working along this edge, but you really don't need any more than that. The other thing you could do is give yourself maybe just an inch. And if you want to work in a hoop, sew some muslin on all 4 sides to accommodate being able to place your hoop on. However, you can, 2 inches is plenty. 2 inches plenty. You can just avoid the hoop at all and just work this in hand, which is also quite possible to do. Q-snaps are a little thicker. If you're going to use a Q-snap, Linda, don't make your fabric tight. and you can, you can add more fabric, if more of your fabric that you're stitching on, if that's your preference. Like I said, though, you're going to be cutting that away. So I guess it amounts to just how frugal do you want to be? And to alleviate that, to alleviate wasting some good fabric, sew some muslin on to accommodate placing it in a Q-snap or a hoop. If you use a Q-snap or a hoop, you don't want that fabric to be tight, because then you can't do a sewing method. That being said, you can certainly, by all means, do a stick and stab, but what you have to be careful of is that you're getting the long stitches on the back, because if you stitch it incorrectly, so if you come up in a hole, go down in a hole, come back up in this hole down here, and go down up here, and you're only getting that skinny little line across the back as opposed to that long stitch, that's not going to work. It's going to fall apart. Sandra, let me show you a Q-snap. I have one over here. I'll grab it. Oh, stiffness. Oh. Don't get old, people, because all you do is get stiff. This is a Q-snap. Pardon my little thingies here. Okay. Those are the pieces that I put between my fabric and, but this is a Q-snap. You would lay your fabric over it. Well, let me do the end here. That doesn't have anything stitched on it. Lay your fabric over it like this. And then I put this piece of fabric on to avoid, because there has been a time when trying to get these off, I put a hole in my fabric. So I put this on, or you can use felt to protect it, and then you snap that on, and then that holds it in place. If you're doing cross stitch, you can tighten this so that your fabric gets really tight. If you're doing Hardanger in this, then you want to let it loose so that you have play in it so that you can do the sewing method. Nordic needle pattern, it would not work. It was not available. It's not a, it's a purchase one. It's a $6 one, and I think on the handout that you got, it tells you the number. It's K, either 51 or 15. I can't remember. Like I said, don't get old. Okay. It's K2151D, and the cost is $6. Yes, Linda, shelf liner works just as well. What I did here is I cut a piece of fabric, and you can see it sticking out here. I had some very low loft quilt batting. So I cut a piece of fabric, I cut a piece of quilt batting the same length but half the width. I folded the fabric over, zigzagged around the edges, and then this is what I use in between my Q-snap and my fabric, because like I said, I had a lot of trouble getting one of the clamps, these things, off one time, and I put a hole in my fabric and I wanted to cry. So this way, the other thing is, don't I think I did it when if there's nothing on here, you can do this. You can slide it off. But that's how I put the hole in my fabric. I kept sliding it to get it off, and it pulled my fabric and tore it. With these, and I did see, yeah, I did see somebody's floss tube last week where they made pieces like this, and they put little strips at each end, and I think they did it on both sides, so that when you want to get this off, you could pull that little strip and snap it off. So this would have had like a little piece of fabric coming out, just a little width that was attached to each side here, and then it came out so that they could grab a hold of those and pull it off to remove the snap that way. But I like these for cross stitching. I really do. They get a little heavy in my hand, so I have a bit of, if I'm going to put my piece on my Lowry stand, it's fine. It's really fine. Yeah, the more you use them, the easier they are to remove. However, that being said, Linda, the more you use them, the easier they are to remove, the more they loosen up, the more they don't keep your fabric as tight for as long. So it's a catch-22 there. Yeah. If I'm going to use these, I put it in my Lowry stand. But what I found recently, hold on, back in a second. And I think I showed you this before. I think I showed you this before, but what I found recently that I really, really like. A lot of you know from previous videos, if you've been around if you hung around me for a while, is I have a Nerge stand, a lap stand. Yes, brand name Q-Snap. If you're going to use a Q-Snap, buy the brand name, not the knockoffs. But what I found recently, I have a Nerge stand. And most of you probably know that if you've been with me for quite some time. But what I found recently is these Nerge frames. They're plastic. However, I should have cut this open before. Ouch. Yeah, as I said, don't get old. If it ain't the hip, it's the ankles. I should have cut this open. I got 2 of these, and I got some in different sizes. Okay, this is a Nerge, and it says Nerge, and this is the number 3. But you open it, you don't need a screwdriver for these. And then this pops out, the inside pops out, and it has these little grooves in it. Here, I'm showing it to the computer. It has these little grooves in it like a Morgan frame. And Morgan frames, I don't, no, I do have one. And they're nice too. But it has the grooves in like a Morgan. So you put your fabric on. Again, I'm going to just do this. You pop it back in. Okay. And then I should have opened it a little more. Okay, I have to fuss with it a little bit. That's the one thing I found. It's a little fussy to get your fabric in. But you pop it back in pop it back in. Okay? Pull your fabric tight. Start tightening this up. Pull it tight again. Start tightening it and continue tightening this up. Okay? I keep adjusting and pulling until I have it the tension I want, and then tighten this up completely. And it has held my fabric beautifully. Plus, the other thing is, I can't hold a Q-snap for any length of time. It gets too heavy in my hand. This hand is better, but I had what they call basal joint arthritis in this hand. And even after many cortisone shots, I ended up having some surgery to remove a bone and fill in a space with tendon. Is a whole big ordeal. And I can hold this now, but I still can't hold it for a great length of time without having my hand bother me, which is why I will only use, if I'm going to use a Q-snap, I will only use it in a frame. Whereas, if I want to hold this, they are so lightweight. They are so lightweight, and I really, really enjoy it. They come in 4 different sizes, and this is not, I'm not sure if this is the biggest one or not. I think there's one yet bigger than this. I have 3 of the sizes. I do not have the biggest one. Linda, yes, I do have a Discord address. I do have a Discord. And I made that primarily, but it can be used anytime. I think some of you have used it and posted your homework on the Discord. And please feel free to do that. Take some credit and let us go on there and do a happy dance for you. But yes, I made a Discord so that primarily if when doing these lives, if one of you or some of you were having trouble stitching this and couldn't find your mistake, or wanted to know, am I doing this right, or feedback, that I can pull up the Discord and make that part of the live session so that we all could see it, so that we all could help you out with what what you're having a problem with. In fact, I thought I thought I had, let me switch here. Oh, here it is. Okay. I have to sign into Discord, but if I'm on this screen here, I can pull up the Discord and we can all see what you have done. So if yes, it's a nurge. This is made by Nerd. It comes from, let me think. I believe they're made in Turkey. But I really like it. I have my heaven and earth design on it. And my fabric has stayed so nice and tight. And yes, I'm one of those. I'm going to roll my eyes. I do not take it out of the hoop every day, or out of this every day. My heaven and earth stays on this until I need to move it. Just like if it was on a Q-snap, it stays on the Q-snap until I need to move it. I know there are different schools of thought on whether to do that or not. And I'm going to say to that, no one's right and no one's wrong. To each their own, and do what you are comfortable with. I have found that yes, a hoop may crush your stitches. I get that. I also get that a Q-snap can crush your stitches. However, that being said, when you wash and iron, okay, I don't know, maybe there are people out there that don't wash their heaven and earth designs before they frame them, or any full coverage for that matter before you frame it. My feeling is, if I've worked like my Stitcher's Retreat, I've worked on that for 5 years. You can't tell me that it didn't get dirty in that 5 years. On and off Q-snaps, on and off hoops, on and off whatever. So you're going to wash it. And as hard as you try to keep it clean, I could see on the fabric surrounding the design, it was not clean. It was being worked on, and hand oils and all of that for 5 years. And letting all that dirt in there is not going to be good for the needlework over the long haul. So yes, I wash it. Once you wash it and you press it, I have not had hoop marks remain. I have not had stitches remain flat because, and the same with Hardanger embroidery, when you press it, when you iron it, you're going to lay it on your ironing board or whatever your means of ironing is, but you're going to pad that with some towels, some terry towels. So that is going to provide a cushion, and those stitches on the front are going to bounce back to life. Well, you know what, Linda? Yes, it may take many years. Um, for the oils in your hands to do some damage in your stitch piece. However, and again, it's just my own thing, is I like to think that not all of them, but at least some of the pieces that I've stitched are going to be passed down in the family. So I like to do anything that I can to help prevent them to stay very much intact, for lack of a better way to put it. AK, I'm not sure what your name is, so I'll just call you AK. I'm actually pulling it back into shape as I'm ironing it. You can manipulate, if it's, slightly askew, you can manipulate that um, to pull them back into square. And I do that as I'm ironing the piece. I don't do like you do, for example, a needlepoint where you have a blocking board and pin them down into place to block it. I do that as best I can while I'm ironing it dry, because I don't let my piece just dry naturally. I iron it dry, at least until it's pretty much dry, but then I will also let it lay flat overnight to make sure that it is thoroughly dry, because all that thread, that takes a long time to get through to iron it dry. Good. Good, Sue. Number 8 seems to be going so much better on the 22 count. Are you using the 8 for just the eyelet? Oh, you're using the 8 for the blocks and the buttonhole? Hey, if that works for you, go for it. Go for it. Like I said, what I have here and suggested is just that, suggestions. And again, it depends, are you working on the 22 count Hardanger fabric, or are you working on like a 22 count even weave fabric? Because there are some of those out. Oh, Martina, I'm sorry you have to go, but thank you, thank you, thank you for stopping by. And I will see you next Wednesday. Have a great week. Stitch happy. Do your homework. No, have a great week. Okay. Anything else? Anything else I can answer or do for you while we're here? Ah, okay, Sue. All right. Yeah. And like I said, this is actually, it's up on YouTube now. It's being broadcast live on YouTube. So that if you run into trouble or forget things or whatever, um, you can always view it later. And the nice thing about that is you can pause it wherever you need to get it. Michelle, yes. Um, when you have to end a thread, the principle for your buttonhole stitch is exactly the same as for the cluster blocks. Um, I would not end it in a corner. I would end it um, I would end it okay, I'm visualizing here. If you came across the top, you went around the corner, you went down the side, you're at the inside corner, you need to get more thread. I would end it there, start my next set of 5 with the new thread, and continue. Oh, I'll let her leave a message. Sorry about that. Um, Yeah, I would not end in the middle of any of your sets of 5 or in your corner. So if you finish a corner and you need more thread, start your thread, start a new thread with that set of 5 that goes across, and then go around your corner. Yeah, you got it. You're exactly right. Sue, yes, the inside, the blocks are your thicker thread, are your, depending on what count you're working on, it would be like this is 28 count. So my blocks are size 8, and my eyelets, and when we do the cutting and wrapping, will be with size 12. Okay. So if you're using size 8 on 22 count, it may or may not be thick enough. Although there's, I mean, I don't have a 22 count here with me right at the moment to try it, but the rule of thumb is you want the thread that you are stitching with to be equivalent to the thickness of the thread of your fabric. And if you remember last week, we talked a little bit about when people first started doing Hardanger, they only had linen, and they did it on linen fabric, and they used linen thread. So some, I don't, and I'm not sure about this, but if they could, in essence, take a thread from your fabric and use that to stitch your blocks with. Yeah, I would test stitch the size 8 on your 22 count, because on 22 count, normally it's size 5 and 8 normally. However, like I said, it's all, you could be going for a different look. I'm not tested out to see if the 8 is too thin for that fabric. It may be. The thing is with 22 count fabric, and the 22 count is a great fabric to work on because it's bigger, so it's easier to see. However, it's going to give you a bulkier look. Whereas when you use the finer fabrics, like I said, this is a 28 count or even a 32 count, your look is going to be more delicate. That's why, for me, that's why I prefer a finer count fabric, because I like it to look more delicate instead of, I mean, okay, here's an old Nordic needle book that, well, I'm not going to tell you when I got it because it was back in the cave days. But let me find, okay, here's a piece. And this is done on 22 count fabric with size 5 and size 8 pearl cotton. And it looks a bit more bulky than what it's going to look on a 28 count. Now, take notice, and this also goes back to what we talked about last week. Take notice, this is the pattern right here. This is it. This is what you get. You don't get a chart that looks, where did I put it? You don't get a chart that looks like the one that I handed out to you in your in my Dropbox. This is what you got, and this is what you stitched from. So when you're replicating an older piece, you don't need a chart. You just need the piece, and you can stitch from that because you already know 5 stitches over 4 fabric threads. That's all there. That's the most important thing to know. So you can stitch this just from this picture. Oh, okay. Actually, the one that this is the one that I had in the handout for you to get. This is what you got. You didn't get a chart. You got this. And this is what you stitched from. But see, that's also done with size 5 and 8 pearl cotton. And it's chunkier than, again, pardon the extra threads, but that's a lot chunkier than what this looks. You know, this is going to be more delicate. So again, play with it. Just play around with it and see what you like. Okay, so did I hold you all up long enough today? Can I answer anything else? Any more questions? Any more things you want to talk about today? If not, I think we'll. Oh, I see a kitty cat looking out the window. Do you see him? He's coming to visit. It's very bright and sunny out there today. That's why you can't see too much. That's Remy, and he comes to visit. Well, I'm glad, Linda. I'm glad that it's all making sense. And like I said, this will stay up on YouTube. Watch it as often as you need to. Pause it where you need to. Hopefully I didn't wiggle around too darn much that it makes it hard to view. You know, I never realized how challenging it can be to stitch something in front of a camera. Leanne, no. No, you want to start a new thread. Can you carry over from a cluster block to a buttonhole row? Not unless you can do it at yeah, I would say don't do that because you run the risk of having a thread carry that is not runs the risk of being cut when we're doing cutting or what have you, because sometimes these areas between the cluster block and the buttonhole edge that where we could put an eyelet, sometimes people just cut that hole, you know, just trim those threads away and leave it as an open hole as opposed to putting an eyelet stitch in there. So I wouldn't want to carry a thread from this block up to this, since it would possibly get cut. Oh, yeah, he is a sweet furry. He's my baby. Michelle, you found the Janice Love book in your mother's. Oh, happy day. Oh, that is awesome because that is a great book. A great book. And you know what? It's no longer in print. And when you can find them, they tend to be on the pricey side. So, wow, good for you. I am happy for you. That is absolutely great. Okay. So, any questions? Please don't hesitate. Um, you can always email me. You can leave a comment on the video. You can post a question in the Discord. And did I not? Um, oh, okay, that went away. The Discord will be on my end screen when I end this video, if you need it. So please use that. Um, let me know, post a pic of how you've done. We can also talk in there of if you need help. You are quite welcome, Michelle, and everyone else. You are quite welcome. It's always my pleasure um, to show you something new. Yeah, it takes practice. With practice, then it will soon become second nature. The more you do it, the easier it gets, the more it flows, the more rhythmic it becomes, and the more you will enjoy it. So with that, my friends, I think we're at about 2 hours here, which that's okay. But I am going to bid you all farewell, and I will see you all next week. And next week, we will be doing, um, since we're doing this ornament, we're going to skip the stars. We're going to go into, these sessions might be a little, not go quite as long into February as what I originally planned. Next week, we will do the cutting. So find yourself a good pair of scissors, pointy, sharp scissors, okay? Because we're going to cut. It's a piece of cake. You can do it. I have faith in you all. So we're going to cut next week, and we will probably start some wrapping of bars. So with that, my friends, have an awesome week. Stay healthy. Happy stitching. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.